Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, D Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. You can follow the entire MTR network at the MTR network. You found us, don't lose it. Subscribe in the iTunes Store. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts absolutely free. Once you're subscribed, leave that 5-star review. We'll read it on the air on the weekly show. And I'll say anything you want me to say if it's 5 stars. I've said very mean things about the Falcons and the Georgia Bulldogs that actually hurt me personally, but it helped my show, so I'll do it. Which I hear the laughter in the background. Someone else agrees. You have anything else you want to say to the show? udpodcast@gmail.com is the best way to do it. Send in your stories, send in ideas for the show, things you want covered, things we can do to make it a more enjoyable listening experience for you. I got to get better at this. All our social media is out there, guys. We have YouTube pages, not just for the MTR Network, but also for Unanimous Decision now. We have, I know our Amazon links are still up on the main site. And, of course, the MTR store is fully stocked after the holidays. Get your Blame Chris t-shirts, your Blame D-Palm shirts. I don't know why you never buy one of those. I've never destroyed anything in my life. I'm all good. But we're here. It's midweek, but it also is Big Four time, and that means that we're going to talk wrestling on UDPod. And I brought in 3 guys to help me do it, and I want to introduce them in order of people, the number of times I've been invited on their platforms. So First up, from the PWTorch Deep Dive live cast, we've got Rich Fann. What up, Rich?
What's going on, D-Palm? Looking forward to chatting with you on Saturday, in fact.
Oh, look at that. Get the early plug in. Get your work in early. Yes, I will be on the Deep Dive on the PWTorch livecast Saturday, 6 o'clock Eastern. What are we talking about this week?
We originally were going to talk about one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Bad News Brown, but because of the events of the last 2 weeks, we are talking about the problematic faves in pro wrestling and dealing with the reality of the people we watch on TV.
And it's interesting because I was listening to Batista on the Edge and Christian podcast, and he said, no one walks up to Chris Pratt and says, oh my God, it's Star-Lord. But because so many people tie the wrestlers to their real life personas, so often it's easy for a wrestler to get lost in it. And Some people have made careers out of it, Ric Flair. And we watch it destroy a lot more of them pick a wrestler. So I think it's going to be a very good show, very fun. Not fun, but interesting and informative. So give us a shot. Listen up. The next person I'm going to introduce, he was just on UDPod this week. I know you missed him. Bringing him back, representing 960 The Ref out of Athens, Georgia, the morning show. We got Sam Franco. What's up, Sam?
Just living the podcast life here. That's my second appearance on your pod in a week, and also recording my own podcast, 960 The Ref, the crossover yesterday. So, yeah, just living my best podcast life, D-Palm.
So everyone's just plugging now. Okay, all right, that's good. No, I'm glad you guys came prepared with plugs. I would like to note that I've never been invited on your podcast. I've been invited on your radio show to talk Mania, but not yet the podcast. I'm counting now. That one counts. Bringing back.
We'll rectify that in the near future. How about
there we go. That's what I like to hear. Commitment on air. And the last person on the podcast, some dude named Cam. No. Cam is the host of the East Coast cast over at PWTorch Live cast. I'm sorry, man. I had to mess with you. He's never invited me on the show. What's up, Cam?
You know, when you do a better job of the exact same thing I do across multiple platforms, it's hard to invite you. Like what are we going to do? What's going to happen? Like, it's just going to be you doing what I do, but really, really well, and people will wonder why they listen to me. It's a whole new set of problems I don't need. I'm just going to yell at you on social media. That's easier for me.
I'll take it.
There we go.
Put me over. That's a great way to start a podcast. Welcome back. Here we are in this spot. That was amazing. So we're here, guys. It's our annual Royal Ramble. We're talking about the Rumble this week. And I was here last year, and I said it on the air, and I got excoriated for it. Not a Rumble guy. And the weird thing is, I remembered that I'm a War Games guy because I was WCW growing up. But for me, the Rumble, I don't know. It just never. It always feels cluttered. I know, Cam, you're a fan of the Rumble, right?
I am. I
Everyone
think,
is with me, man. Something's wrong with me.
yeah, I'm a fan of it when the right guys are in it. Like, I think you have to have a situation where a guy like like he who shall not be named, like, runs pretty much the table. Same thing with like a Mysterio, or the year that Punk was basically throwing guys out and getting on the mic every time he got rid of somebody. The Rumble is good when you have good hands you let get an extended period of time. We don't get that all the time, so they're not always good, but the good ones, the really good ones, do really stand out.
And that's 100% fair. And I do want to be honest. I was reading, I think, John Cohn, one of the refs, was telling a story about how hard it is to book these things. Because you've got 30 guys who have to know cues, and you have 4 refs. It's a lot happening. And I respect that and understand that, we're going to get the Kofi spot. We're going to get certain things that I find a little bit trite. They're going to get the celebrity spot. And probably because we're in Philly and ECW return, I'm really hoping for Blue Meanie. Like, no one but me thinks this.
Oh, boy.
I think
I'd be down with that. That sounds awesome.
If you let JBL in and you let Meanie throw him out over the top rope, it'd be a really good way to bury some public hatchets. That's all I'm saying. Sam, I remember you are a big proponent of the Rumble as well. Convince me. Tell me how wrong I am.
Well, here's the thing about it. I mean, it's an easy way to put someone over without having to give them as much mic time as TV time. I mean, if you have a very hot commodity, then the Royal Rumble is a great way to get them over quicker. But it's also something you can use to set up other things, based on somebody eliminating someone from the Rumble. There's always an angle or two that gets set up in the Royal Rumble match. So I just think that it's something that allows people to get really fired up for WrestleMania season. And it's also something that allows fans to see the unexpected, so to speak. You're always getting, like you said, a cameo, especially being in Philly, an ECW cameo. I'd expect like a Rob Van Dam to maybe make an appearance. So just those kind of things. It gives you for one match, it gives you like 8 or 9 different things that you can do with it that allow you to keep that road to WrestleMania really on the right track.
See, and you did a great job selling, because that I'm big into wrestling because of the physicality and the stories. I like the story that's being told. Rich, he brings up a good point here, but I got to ask, and we can see it this year, even the TV suffers leading in the Rumble because you don't have to set up a story.
Yeah, going into this year, the story is we don't have a story. Usually about this time, going into the go-home week of the Rumble, you'd have, here are the few people that we think are the favorites. Here's what they've shown in matches or in random vignettes where they've kind of thrown people over the top rope post-match, or they've kind of declared why they're going to win. This year, we kind of have the Rumble. And I think, if anything, the more of the attention is being paid to the Women's Royal Rumble and the novelty of that. So I think the men are kind of going to get off scot-free as far as pressure, in my opinion.
I think a lot of part of the Rumble, and I'm telling myself here because I was a lapsed fan for a long time. In 2011's year, I came back with the Mania in Atlanta. And since I've been back, the Rumble hasn't grabbed me. And I started looking back at the winners since I got back. So let's say I came back Mania 11. So 2012, Sheamus. 2013, a very predictable John Cena win. 2014, Batista, while everyone lost their fucking minds. 2015, Roman Reigns, while everyone lost their fucking minds. 2016, somehow Triple H again.
Mm-hmm.
In 2017, somehow Randy Orton again. And because of the way it's been set up this year, I feel even more so than usual. There's less of an angle. There's less of a push that I want to see happen. I'm more just like, well, I have to kind of take what you give me because I'm not excited about any of it. But we're going to talk about the Rumble. We're going to talk about the event. I do want to backtrack a little because this week was Raw 25. And they did a lot of build for this. They talked about their social media. All right, Mark.
There we go. There we go.
I feel like Sam had seats at the United Center.
Yeah, Manhattan Center. Yes, we'll talk about those unfortunate people who got swindled. But might have deserved it because I feel like that's the fan base that brings the beach balls.
Well, Frank the Clown was in that fan base, so I have no pity for that.
Oh, never mind. You know what? This was a great prank party by WWE.
They showed him like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, please stop showing him on camera.
Well, he put out a tweet. He put out a tweet today that counted the amount of minutes at the Manhattan Center relative to Raw and the percentage of time they were basically not shown on television. I was like, you dated a WWE legend's daughter, maybe still date. You claim you're going to go into pro wrestling and you're given free seats for most of your life, up until the point you had to pay because they got sick of you. Why are you complaining?
He's the Fireman Ed of the WWE, which just, I mean,
oh my God, he is.
Ridiculous. Yeah, he's exactly. He's like, hey, look at me. I know this is supposed to be about the product, you know, for Fireman Ed with the Jets, for this clown, really. It is WWE. At the same time, enough attention isn't being paid to him, then yeah, he's going to make it, you know, about me and tweet out stupid stuff like that. And it just bothers me to no end that any one fan of anything thinks they're better than any other fan, because they're not.
Without calling out any more specific fans, Brock Lesnar guy, let's talk about the Raw 25, because it started hot. If you're going to start a celebration of Raw, breaking the glass is the way to do it. And I want to just go on record, that was the second worst McMahon sell of a stunt I've ever seen.
Oh, it's way better than some of the other ones, dude. Are you kidding me? I mean, obviously the first one he took was the worst, and as he's gotten older, it's gotten worse. But I thought, all things considered, especially how old he is, that was actually one of his better sells.
Cam, Rich, pick a side. Was it a good sell or a bad sell?
No, it was
my man's 70-something. My man's 70-something.
No, I'm not great.
He's never taken a good stunner. And if anything, I appreciated that before he took the stunner, he had enough petty in him to pour beer on his own son, who had already been laid out as a sacrifice.
Thank you. That's all I'm saying, man. The older he's gotten, I mean, just considering his age, it wasn't as bad as some of the other ones I've seen.
Well, I definitely appreciate.
I mean, it's not Linda. What was it, Raw 10 or was it Raw 15 when he stunned the entire McMahon family?
I think it was 10.
I mean, that's why. Hey, that's why it's TVPG, man. As soon as I saw Austin in the ring with McMahon and Stephanie had to take a powder, I was like, yeah, I see where this is going.
And a tip of the cap to those intrepid cameramen who did their best to keep those middle fingers off television. It did not work. But speaking of things that didn't work, the rest of the night, Manhattan Center crowd who paid, from what I'm hearing, too much for any reasonable human being to go to a not wrestling show, because Vince McMahon was never going to let the WWE on their biggest stage look cheap. Right. You can love Ico Pro, you can love 1-2-3 Kid. They were never going to want Raw out of there.
But they sent the Undertaker to a Comic-Con, man. They sent Undertaker to Comic-Con.
You know, I'm convinced.
Like they didn't have, like, it's just for the amount of respect they have for that guy, for as much as they protect him, for the situations they put him in, for as big of a deal as they make him, you know, they just left him out to dry, man. It wasn't cool. Like, it was like, yeah, you said Comic-Con. It was like if we actually, what do I want to say? It's like when you went to the Cavs game, right? Mm. But you let
LeBron had him waiting to
take those pictures. Yeah. It's like he was stuck outside the locker room and the kid filmed it.
That was hilarious, by the way, when Undertaker's just standing out there. And, of course, LeBron is a super printed image, and every little thing has to be, controlled.
This is a wrestling podcast. Let's go.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's with LeBron. It's like, hey, Undertaker's out there. It's like, I'm not going out there.
Come on.
Yeah, he's like, okay, like we didn't clear this. Like, we didn't set this up. I don't have my Kane mask on. Like, what are we doing?
The man protects his image. You know, any good pro wrestler. LeBron James working us all. So Raw 25, what were your people's feelings? Because I don't know what people expected. I don't know if I expected more storyline, if I expected more pomp and circumstance, but it felt like we tried to straddle the line and got neither.
Well, it just seemed very disjointed. Like, that was my whole thing. It's like you've had months and months and years, to plan something like this out. And I know that Jimmy Fallon kind of screwed him over with some of the stuff they had planned backstage, but that doesn't mean that, you don't have contingency plans. And instead of just, parading out legends every once in a while to wave to the crowd, like that stupid thing they did with the GMs, and then they did it with some of the women's wrestlers later on. It's like, what are y'all doing? Like, y'all don't have any better stuff planned out than this, like segment wise? Like, it was just, for all of the pomp and fanfare that went into it, and the lead up that went into it, I mean, it just let down tremendously.
Yeah. What's kind of off to me, like, I don't think with the talent that you brought in, that's the arena you use. Like, you don't. It was like Semi-Pro, which is a movie I really enjoyed.
I love it.
Imagine if the Tropics came out and for some reason they were playing, I don't know, the '96 Sonics. Like, it doesn't fit, and it throws off the narrative. Like, DX as a unit was never in that arena. Like, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn were in the war zone as far as Raw goes. Like, Austin was in the war zone. Like, outside of really your Sean Waltman and your Scott Hall, like, it's just not the right fit. Triple H was out of place.
Right, because he was in WCW at the time.
No, but didn't he win the European title off Sean in the Manhattan Center?
He got some tail in there, but I mean, like,
okay, I remember
as a unit,
as a unit, right, no.
It just didn't fit. Like, visually, it was off, and then, like, for somebody like me who really appreciated what they were doing with the with the Clique, the Club, and the Revival, I just think that needs a grander stage. Nothing sounded right. Nothing hit the right way as far as how they cheered. Like, it was just so disjointed, and you just put on a different movie on a different set, and it just did not fit for whatever you thought of the content. It was just so visually off-putting.
I thought Scott Hall looked good, though.
Hall looked great.
He looked great.
It's not as good as I've seen him look in a long, long time.
I didn't like the way that they went to commercial when Scott got introduced.
That was so bad. That was so terrible.
Who's giving them cues? Who's telling those guys to hurry up and hit their cues? I guarantee it was a plan.
Yeah.
I guarantee it was a planned break. Rich, is there anything you would have changed specifically to change the feel of the night?
To change the feel of the night, I'm stealing this from the man known as Unk on the PWTorch side of the house, Bruce Mitchell. I would have done an NXT taping. Because 205 Live wasn't going to do it. You give a couple of NXT guys, you fly them up there. It's not like they're locked in for Saturday. So you can bring a couple of them up there, do some mixed tags, do some 6-mans, do like a little cage or something like that, and keep the people there entertained with people they like. Because if you're that big an ardent fan that you're going to be paying for those seats, you're going to know who Cassius Ohno is. You're going to know who Roderick Strong is and appreciate him in the ring.
That's 100% true. I think that's a great idea too. I hadn't even thought about that. My fix would have been do it the Monday after the Rumble.
Yeah.
That way you're riding the Rumble high. You got people in town who are in town for Big Four anyway. You boost the people who are there a little bit more. You can run, and I like what you said about running NXT over there. I would have said to just run either run the card game in the middle of the ring with the Acolytes. Or just
that was the best thing of the whole night, by the way. That was the only thing that, as a running gag, continued to work the entire night. I mean, it was one of the best things they did back in the Attitude Era. So, I mean, they did a really good job of kind of the nostalgia aspect. And I thought, other than the Stone Cold and the McMahons, which was really just a bunch of cheap stunners and some beer swilling, I thought that was really well thought out.
No stunners ever cheap. They all cost. Stone Cold is back.
Fair point. Fair point.
Everything has a cost. All right, so
but I will say that the build up to the Dam from Ron Simmons was really good this time too.
He really hit. I think that was one of those sweet spot dams. That was a strong dam.
It was.
All right, so that's Raw 25. Does anyone care that Miz won the belt back?
Oh, I do.
Okay, I care in the larger macro for the company, but as far as I felt like I got lost in the shuffle of this event. And I think if you run this show the night after Rumble, you can all the surprises from Rumble, you can play them out on television and still honor the legends. And I don't know, man. It just felt like a missed opportunity, this whole thing, and they wanted to stand alone. And now you've got really 4 big nights in a row that you're going to try to sell out these buildings, be it a TakeOver, Rumble, Raw, and SmackDown. If you could pair that Raw and SmackDown with the 25th, maybe it's easier to sell. I don't know. Things have changed.
I think that,
go ahead.
Yeah, him having the title is more important than how he won it or when he won it. I think that you want him to be a truth teller, whether that's for better or for worse. I think that's what they cast him as. Him saying he's going to reclaim it and have it for however long he says. I think it was just important to get that back on him, and it frees Roman Reigns up to do Roman Reigns things over the next couple of months, however you feel about that, too.
Ruin the Rumble.
We're doing predictions later. Come on, man. We'll get there.
Roman sleeping.
Dude, I had a cough. I'm sorry.
Oh, my goodness. Well, since we last talked, a lot happened in the women's division. Paige came back. Now Paige is gone. Looks like she won't be wrestling anymore. Spinal stenosis, the same diagnosis that shelved Edge's career some say too early. I say a little bit too late, maybe. Just injury aspect, not because I didn't like Edge. Really quickly, do we think that obviously they're going to keep her around? They got a movie they helped produce coming out soon about her family and her life. Do we think that she has a place as an announcer, a manager? How do you see the Paige character moving forward? Because I think she has enough chops to do either.
Ooh, that's a good question. I like the manager. Again, she could be on commentary or something, but I really like her as a manager. I think she's got, really good mic skills and a really good knowledge of the business. And I just got to say, I mean, it's been a really rough, year for her with the hacking of her private pictures and things like that. And obviously, see the injury here. And as someone who really enjoys her as a performer, I'm very saddened by her getting this diagnosis of probably not being able to ever wrestle again. But, hopefully she takes the ball and runs with it like we've seen Daniel Bryan do.
I'll tell you what, the one thing that gives me a lot of hope for her is that I still think she's the best promo in the women's division.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm not fighting you on that.
Huh? Go ahead.
She got a great look. When you have a great look and just a great persona, and again, like you're a great talker, there's always room for you in a wrestling company, whether it's in the ring or not. And yeah, it'd be nice to see her stick around, as a manager or just as a character. And, hopefully, like, you never know with these medical things. Like, at first it was she'll never compete again. Then it was she won't compete for the Rumble. So, you want things to work out for somebody like this who's been through so much. And, we'll have to see. We'll have to let it play out. But in the short term, like, if that's the role, she's going to excel in that role because she's very good at it as far as just getting across her personality, as far as delivering lines. She's really good. So, yeah, best of luck to her, whatever capacity she's going to be in, because I think she can excel there.
100%.
I would say I want her as a manager, and I think if they're smart, especially using, like, I think she's probably in this PG world of WWE at present, but just slowly moving away towards more adult. She's the only one that could get away with her video wall saying "scream for me," and everybody's just like, "Yeah, you got the juice. We ain't gonna complain about it. No one in management's gonna be like, we got to clean this up. We got Parent Television Council complaining." Like, think about it. It's unfortunate as it was with the sex scandal. She came back from that, and nobody is dumb enough to be in the ring saying anything to her about it. Nobody's dumb enough in the fans saying anything about it. So I think if they really want to use that juice, not only use it with the women wrestlers like in Absolution, but find a dude that you think is good but maybe doesn't speak as well, and have him as you work for me now.
Our club.
Yes.
I don't know. I kind of like Paige and Braun Strowman.
Well,
Ooh.
that's actually,
Nah, that would be cool.
That's
what I'm saying, man. Like she could kind of be. Yeah, I mean, she the one that runs her mouth, and he the one that cleans up messes.
It's like
See, I was gonna say Big E after he breaks off from the New Day.
I'm getting more and more convinced the New Day will never die.
Well, I mean, as long as Vince McMahon is alive, he needs black dudes to be dancing. So.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean.
You and I will talk New Day some other time, good sir. Another departure.
It's funny. I hear all this, and I'm sitting in my room right now where I've got a box of Bootio's lunchbox and 3 pop vinyls of the New Day, and I'm like, dang man, those. Woo.
I can verify that because every time he purchased each one of those items, I got a text message.
Well, see, don't get me wrong. I still enjoy the New Day. I have some shirts, and for me, I really enjoyed when they were on, I think it was Jericho, when they mentioned how disappointed Vince was that the idea of them as black preachers didn't really set the world on fire. Like, he was legitimately hurt, which makes me think he thought he was going to have like 3 MLKs just for him to use at his leisure. But that's a conversation again for another night.
Yes, it is. Another departure this week. Enzo Amore is no longer with the company. And I know we're discussing it at length on the deep dive, so I'm not going to step on the show, but I will say this. Regardless of where you stand on the veracity of the claims, I know where I stand. I know, regardless of where you stand, the WWE was put in a position where they had no choice but to release him. Withholding the information and having it break before Raw 25 put the company in a position where they had no choice. And I think they did the right thing. Some people are saying they did the wrong things, just whatever. I think that as a whole, the wrestling community seems to be handling this okay. I know there's pockets of people like going after this poor girl, and obviously Enzo's trying to defend himself, but am I wrong in thinking that maybe we've grown up a little as a wrestling community? Is this too much hope? Or am I looking in the wrong places?
I think probably you're giving the wrestling community as a whole a little bit too much credit, but at the same time, you know, this is one of those situations where I totally agree with you in a sense that he was not, or he did put the company in a very bad position by just not telling them in the first place, because they have this big event coming up and then this breaks right before it. So it was a very huge mistake on his part to just withhold that information. But, you know, unfortunately, we do live in a society where, you know, certain people like to capitalize on certain things. And I just think that, you know, I know enough about what has happened to really, you know, make an informed and rationalistic comment on what happened. Because again, I wasn't there, I don't know, but at the same time, you hear a lot about Enzo Amore and his unlikability within the locker room and things like that. And quite frankly, you know, when you hear something like that, it's like, well, I don't not believe, or I don't have any reason to believe that this girl's lying, but I also don't have any reason to believe that, you know, Enzo Amore is lying. I think it's something that we have to let play out.
Yeah, I think that I'm right there with you, Sam. I think that, you know, it's always my position in cases like this. I always like to believe that these things aren't true because you don't want to believe somebody would do that to another person.
Of course.
That's always where I say you jump. But, you know, you know, talking to my man Rich, you know, and I've been talking to Travis about it. We did the East Coast cast a little bit before this show, and it's just a situation where if you know you're a public figure, in terms of the company you work for, like, you know, they'll tell you about a lot of jobs. You don't necessarily have to disclose certain things to your employer unless it directly affects your ability to work there. When you're somebody who is expected to sign autographs and kiss kids and go to your Be a Star campaign meetings and things like that. Like, that's a situation where, yeah, you're going to need to inform your employer about something like this, because then on the back end, all those places you visit, those autograph signings you did, the person who bought your T-shirt, they all of a sudden feel away about what you've done and who they were put in front of. So it was bad just on his part. Would it have been different if he was a squeaky clean employee? Still no, but maybe he has a bit more leg room. But when you already know your relationship's rocky, communication is key. And he chose not to communicate, and it got him. And I can't feel bad for him in this case, because I think the severity of what they said about you, you knowing who you work for and the image they try to present, you should have got out in front of it. And now you're going to deal with that. Hopefully we find out that, and again, this isn't me casting blame on one side or another. Personally, hopefully we find out these claims are unsubstantiated, because I don't want anything like that to happen to a person, and we can go from there. But, we'll have to see. But again, he did himself no favors with holding that information.
Yeah, and I think to Sam's point earlier, all of us are in the boat of we don't know what happened. But I think the dangerous thing for Enzo is he's been riding that razor's edge the last few months, and really the last year. And when you have someone making these accusations and drugs and alcohol and things like that are involved, he might see things one way, but reality might have been something else. So I'm not trying to make an excuse for him, but I'm saying he's been riding so fast and loose. Like Austin always makes that allusion on his show when he talks about his domestic abuse issues and some of the other things. He always just puts it under, I was riding hard back then. And that's kind of like the catch-all, which we're going to get into at length on Saturday, because one of the best moments of Raw last night or 2 nights ago was Austin, and a lot of people give him a pass that I don't necessarily, which is why I've always put The Rock ahead of him. But that, again, we'll get into that Saturday. With Enzo, I mean, in Buffalo, he had strippers complaining about him stiffing them. He goes on Rosenberg's show in December and does a freestyle about how he beat a charge at some point in his life. Like, you are in a public figure and you're consistently being a scumbag.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like I said, it's all Duggan's situation. The fact is that the man's no longer employed with the WWE,
right.
WWE. And that's all we know right now. We'll talk about it again, like I said, on Saturday Deep Dive. Check us out 6 p.m. Eastern on the PWTorch livecast. But I'll say this, the list of women who've gotten rich or famous by being raped is short. Some would say nothing. Let's talk about arrivals, because people showed up, not necessarily in Sanford. Like, do they say it like you're going to New York now? Like, is that what the kids, like, if you're on the Indies, like, I'm going to New York. Like, that was what you said when you went to the WWE in the territory days. But now it's like, yeah, I'm going to Tampa. But we have 4 new arrivals in Tampa. The Tag Team War Machine, Candice LeRae, Mrs. Wrestling, and the Irish wrestler Rick O'Shea, as we all know from our 2K18 creator wrestlers.
There you go.
I gotta start with my man Rich. Who are you most excited for coming in?
I'd say Ricochet. Definitely.
Okay.
I mean,
are you nervous like a lot of people are? Because I've heard a lot of concern about certain numbered programs that happen live every week that he could be shunted into.
Yes. Cam and I's boss, editor, publisher, Wade Keller, that is his goal. He wants him on 205 Live to kind of save it. And I'm like, no, don't give that man a prison sentence. He ain't do nothing. I think he'll be like, you can't save it. You can't, what is dead cannot be brought back again. I think he'd be fine going to NXT, staying as an NXT darling for a few months, maybe a year and a half, depending on Triple H needs things to go, and then go to SmackDown, especially if AJ maintains his role as the face that runs the place on SmackDown.
It's sad because, I mean, I know, and D-Palm being a WCW guy before a WWE guy, you'll remember this with me, that first 8 o'clock hour Nitro, man, the cruiserweights. I mean, I've always been such a huge fan of cruiserweight wrestling, and, going back to the days of Mysterio, Malenko, Psychosis, and all these guys that were so fun to watch. Ricochet is very much, in that mold of a guy that can really bring the energy and bring a different style to WWE. But yeah, I mean, 205 Live just hasn't worked out. A lot of the guys they've brought in, I don't think have great personalities, great characters. So it's been unfortunate. And yeah, if they just shove Ricochet on 205, then yeah, it's going to be one of these things where you're like, yeah, I love the fact that he's there, but when do we get to actually see him?
I think a lot of that has to do with some of the publication, promotion of the show. I think if this Facebook deal goes through, or the Amazon deal goes through, and 205 Live can get on more platforms, it'd be very helpful because I do watch 205 Live. Cedric and Mustafa Ali put on a classic last night. Like
Cedric's fun to watch, dude.
They put on a show, and it feels like maybe now they're getting away from kind of the storyline-based Enzo stuff, they can get more into the CWC stuff that we saw that made us excited, that made the crowd chant, "Please sign Cedric." It was a style of wrestling that was a departure from even WWE style cruiserweights. So I tell everyone, give that match a shot. There are highlights on YouTube if you don't have the network. It's only $9.99 and it's free for your first 30 days. Or so they tell me every time I watch WWE programming. I personally am here for War Machine. Hanson and Rowe, there's two big guys. I think it's time for the Authors of Pain to head to the main roster. Hopefully for as heavies for Samoa Joe, because Paul Ellering's not going to want to travel. I've thought this through. And you come in, and I know you got heavy machinery in NXT, but if you've got the knockoff War Machine, I think having War Machine come and just demolish NXT for a year would be a great way to set up the eventual Hoss of the Century match. Authors of Pain versus War Machine versus Harper and Rowan.
Oh wait, we're not talking about Rody Rhodes here?
No.
I had to make that joke. I'm sorry.
James Rhodes is not coming to the Performance Center.
I know it was bad. I apologize.
Broke his spine.
I'm trying to say, he still got a bad back. Got to work on that.
No, I think there's something to this. I think that this tag team renaissance that's slowly been happening across the WWE the last 18 months has been helpful for the product because I don't know what's going to happen with the push now that certain driving incidents have occurred, but the Usos have been amazing this year. They've really brought me a level of excitement for main roster tag wrestling I didn't know I still had.
What they've done for what they've done even for A New Day, as far as them and Woods specifically, but getting that in-ring credibility. Really, and Rich will tell you, I tell this story every chance I get. SmackDown Live was given to American Alpha. It was American Alpha's to have. And the Usos decided to just go to a different level than they'd been even on their good face run. And they just took it over and there was no room for an American Alpha. Now on the back end, you see what kind of fire that's lit under like a Chad Gable who's doing, his best work right now. Like I don't think you can, if you have a top 5 list all time of WWE tag teams, I don't see how it doesn't include the Usos now. Based on what they've done over the last year or so, plus the face stuff they did when they were the tag champs on both shows, it's just amazing how far they've come. With all that said, D-Palm, I got to go with Rich. I'm definitely here for Ricochet. As a late adapter to Ricochet, my first experience with him is as Prince Puma in Lucha Underground.
Okay.
So it was just amazing to me watching. He's water. He's the smoothest wrestler I've ever seen, and that includes your Shawn Michaelses and your AJ Styles and your Bret Harts and your Eddie Guerreros. And then this isn't me saying he's as quote unquote good as those guys, but as far as somebody just being smooth with no wasted motion, with everything just looking crisp, like fresh out of a mocap session, it's Ricochet. And I'm curious to see how he does like in this different environment. Now, in a perfect world for me, Ricochet comes in, beats whoever your champion is, and is champion until Velveteen Dream is ready to carry the title and Ricochet is ready to move up. If I had it my way, that's what we get. But yeah, I'm so excited to see him. in his own space in an environment where, Triple H understands what he has and is doing everything he can to make sure this guy is a big deal. You don't hear about Ricochet causing problems, so and he's not, 3'8", so you're not worried about a Leo Rush situation. But yeah, I just think it's his ball to carry when it's time for him to get there, and I can't wait to see it.
I'll say this: I'm sad we'll never see a double moonsault again. Actually, a little happy. That shit's crazy. But you're right. I think the best way to describe Ricochet's in-ring ability is he's efficient, and he covers the ring, and he operates well. I'm going to see how it's interesting because he works a lot of those 19 by 19, 18 by 18 indie rings. So 20 by 20 is a little bit different. So we'll see how that works out. And I'm really excited for someone to teach him how to talk. Like, I'm really excited. Like 3 good months of coaching the Performance Center. Like, the sky could be the limit because he's got that rock endorsement he's got a couple months ago. He's got the endorsement Triple H, obviously, from the old picture of him with that perm. Like, it's just really, it's going to be exciting to see what they do with him. And I'll say this before we move on. If you haven't seen Candice LeRae's final indie match, YouTube it. The thank you Candice chant. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And her final match is, of course, against her world cutest tag team partner, Joey Ryan. Maybe Candice LeRae is the way we get intergender wrestling back.
I mean, she's had better matches with men than some men.
Well, I mean, if you remember the Mae Young Classic during the commentary, they kept bringing up that she makes most of her indie dates wrestling men, and they didn't shy from it. They didn't say, "Oh, it's not something we talk about on television." They kept talking about it. And now with the mixed match challenge, I'm not saying we're headed that way. I'm saying fingers might be a little crossed. A return over the last 2 weeks. The Blackout's back, y'all. Formerly known as the Curb Stomp. They gave Seth Rollins his finisher back after 3 years in the wilderness with that I guess it was like a single underhook facebuster for a second. Then the pedigree for way too long. Yeah. And then this like poor man's Kenny Omega V-trigger.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, Rainmaker V-trigger. Did anyone ever buy that knee as an actual finish? Anyone here?
They couldn't even come up with a name for the finisher, so they were just like, it's that thing he does, the thing for 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
I thought for a while there they called it the Kingslayer.
They did, but then it didn't take.
Calling him that,
yeah.
All right, so
Royale with cheese.
That would have been a great name. Oh man, I think this is great because it gives Seth an edge. It gives his characters there's so much tied to your finisher in wrestling. Like, I love pointing out to people that no one's kicked out of the Dirty Deeds in 2 years. They protected the hell out of that finish. The Blackout, as it's now called, was a hell of a protected finish. And the knee just wasn't. The knee never sold me. And hopefully this is the way they get Seth Rollins back on track. Before we go talk about the weekend to come, I want to talk about some outside WWE action that's happened already in 2018. Wrestle Kingdom 12 happened. A lot of great wrestling up and down the card. An amazing true main event. But I think the thing that boosted New Japan signups so much, and the thing that goosed ticket sales in the Tokyo Dome, we can all admit now, Alpha versus Omega, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, Cam, Chris Jericho's 47. What?
It was so violent, man. Like, that's the biggest compliment I could give. It was so violent.
It wasn't a Kenny Omega match.
Yeah. I mean, Jericho came in, and Jericho's basically late 80s movie villain, and is just owning it, chewing up the scenery. And it was just your knockdown, drag out. Like, when you let 2 12-year-old kids play a no DQ match, and they're just going for all the weapons they can, and every move they can hit that you have to hit that. Huh?
You mean in video games?
Yeah, I mean, they're holding down the strong button on every move. Okay, like, there's no hip tosses with no
backyard wrestling.
Yeah, there's no toe drops. Like, there's no Irish whips. Like, they're just killing each other. And it was just Jericho, like, grabbing the photographer's camera and giving it the finger. Like, it was just nasty, and I loved it. It was amazing. And you could just feel, like, the disdain, artificial as it was between those guys. You just have never really seen Jericho like that. Like, he wasn't a brat like he was during his strongest heel times in WWE. Like, he wasn't suit Jericho, and he wasn't red ponytail Jericho. Like, this was a different beast, and he was just so fun to watch. And then everything Kenny Omega does is just pretty, and it just looks great. It was amazing. You know, if that's Jericho's best match, what a best match! Like, it was so good to watch. I really enjoyed it.
It's so crazy to me thinking about Chris Jericho over the years and what, Eric Bischoff had no idea that he had in Chris Jericho from, the beginning there in WCW. And then, he gets to WWE and they finally give this guy a platform to work with. And you talk about just a wrestling chameleon. He is so able to work pretty much any scenario you throw him into. I mean, he can be the goofy Kevin's buddy, he can be what he was in that match against Kenny Omega, which was just a madman. I mean, he can just pretty much play any role you thrust him into, and the way that he's changed and adapted over the years. I mean, when it's all said and done, I know nostalgia gives a lot of people, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, like all these vibes, but even Bret Hart. But when it's all said and done, I mean, we're talking about Chris Jericho, and then when he's getting into the WWE Hall of Fame, we're talking about one of the greatest ever, if not a guy that can be up for that mantelpiece of greatest ever.
It's so crazy how long he's been able to run, if not say carry the company on top, but he's always near the top. It's always Jericho's always up there. He's always in an event, and I think Rich, for me, the best part, and like Cam already mentioned, Jericho's able to dirty up a Kenny Omega match. Kenny Omega's matches are usually, they're violent, but they're very pretty. They're very aesthetically pleasing. This was felt like a fight. And do you think that's why it was such a departure, and that's how they got the coveted 5-star rating from Dave Meltzer?
I think so, and I think they took time. They took so much time in a short time in developing that hatred. Jericho took the time. I mean, I think I mentioned this when we did the VIP. And I mentioned a little on Twitter. There was a portion when Jericho fell butt first through the table. He is screaming at Masa Chono, who is on commentary for New Japan on the native side as far as commentary goes. And he's like, you remember this, Chono? Remember this? 20 years to the day, he was in a match with Chono, and Chono put him through a table from outside of the ring to the floor. And then, sure enough, Omega does it to him. And he was distracted. Like, him remembering that spot and deciding to do it as an homage to a guy he wrestled 20 years ago shows that while this guy's a rock and roller, he is a wrestler through and through, and his memory is insane.
He's a truly professional wrestler. He's the last connection we have to those territory days that's still doing it really at any level. All apologies to wherever Terry Funk is killing himself tonight.
Oh, God.
What? It's true. I hate watching that stuff. So Cody and the Bucks, which I need to do a whole separate other podcast about the coming split for the Bullet Club and how I don't want to choose between Cody and Kenny, but we'll get this other time. They've announced they called their shot. All in is the hashtag, and I just want to go quickly. Show's going to be this fall. It's going to be in Chicago. Rich, are you all in?
I would love to be, but I think it's going to be the weekend of a football game for me for high school, so I cannot be all in.
Cam, are you all in?
Yeah, have fun, B-Palm. I'm sure it'll be great. I'll be watching somewhere from a distance.
Damn. My last shot here. Are you all in?
Oh, God. I mean,
you love Chicago. You're a noted lover of Chicago.
I am. I'm a very noted lover of the city of Chicago, one of my favorite places in this great country of ours, but that's a hard time, with football and everything. Some of it, unfortunately, day jobs do have to be thought about. But if I can make my way there, believe me, I will be there because I love what Cody Rhodes is doing. And oh man, the prospect at some point down the line of that Kenny Omega Cody Rhodes match, you just maybe daydream for a minute.
It's coming, and it's going to be spectacular. I've also got my fingers crossed for Punk. Like, I'm one of those silly, stupid marks who's like, this is where Punk's going to come back. Because I'm an idiot. I get it. I'm fine.
I mean, it's Chicago. I mean, they'll just be too perfect.
I'll be an idiot for Punk. That's fine. Let's talk about this weekend that's coming up. NXT is running in Philadelphia. Where are they running? Hold on, I didn't even look at that. I want to see what building they're in. They're in the Wells Fargo. Oh, they're in the Wells Fargo. Okay. That'll be interesting to see how much is tarped off. Maybe none of it because it's Philadelphia. They're running on Saturday, the 27th, NXT Philadelphia. First match on the card. It's a pretty, not that overwhelming of a card. Velveteen Dream and Cassius Ohno, the former, the knockout artist, if you will be continuing his job of putting people over to elevate them. And is this where we thought he'd be, Cam? Or did we have hopes of a title run for our friend Chris Hero?
Yeah, I think, he's about where he needs to be. I genuinely think, like, when you let yourself go, and that's, I don't know how I can put it, when you let yourself go, it does show a level of dedication, whether you're a good hand or not, and it's not necessarily somebody you trust at the top of your card, even though they can help out. So I think he's about the spot he needs to be. He's enhancement as good as he is. And, also it being like his second run, that further lets you know, like, this is a guy we know can do a job for us. We might not push it as far as somebody that we believe in. So, no, I think this is about where he needs to be, helping a guy like Velveteen along, making sure he's in good matches for his eventual big push, which he himself, did a lot to start with his promo work over the weeks and then putting on a top 5 NXT match of the year with your guy Aleister Black.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I do think you're right. I think this is the tail end of the tail of Chris Hero. I think we're seeing transition to a coach or backstage producer role, both of which will fit him very well. Whole lot of indie guys back there these days, huh? Next up on the card.
Hold on, really quickly while we're on Velveteen, I just got to say, Deepon, we got to see him. The first time I ever saw him was at Center Stage over in Atlanta. Thank you. I'm all on board. That guy's awesome. Everything about that guy.
He's going to make them a ton of money. Sam, I do want to ask you, though, about the tag team match. The Undisputed Era or Redragon, whatever you want to call them. Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, champions taking on the Authors of Pain with Paul Ellering. Sam, is this finally my Authors of Pain call-up? Are we done? What else is left?
I don't think there's really anything left, and quite frankly, I thought this call-up was coming a long time ago. So I would say yes, but maybe they're building to something else. I really don't know, but you're totally right. I mean, what is left for those guys? They've demolished every team, and it really does seem like there's just not an intriguing storyline for them left in NXT.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's going to be good to have the Undisputed Era pick up a title win, a title defense on a takeover, because while they look strong at War Games, it's been kind of quiet for them since. So, and they came in really strong with taking on Drew McIntyre, apologies, at Brooklyn 3. But I think this is going to be the kind of their coming out party and show the world what they can really do. Rich, Ember Moon, Shayna Baszler, the Queen of Spades. Do we see a championship move here with other rumors of other horsewomen making their moves to the WWE?
Well, I think, as Cam knows, I call Ember Moon Ember Cormier, and I think it's time that Ember lives up to her namesake and not defend her title when the opportunity arrives to prove that she's anything but the interim women's NXT champion.
I think that's also a little bit indicative of kind of a struggle I've noticed across, not just NXT, but WWE booking. But I think it's actually more pronounced in NXT. They don't write top baby faces well.
No.
Particularly with Ember, I think it's been a weird build for her. I think that we haven't seen everything that she can do, but they also haven't given her a vehicle to show it. So it's all been a little uneasy for me, but I think you're right. I think Ember drops the title. That was Ember Cormier. That's really mean. Like that's and
I mean, where's the lie? Where's the lie?
As a former high school wrestler, Daniel Cormier, I'm a huge fan of idealistically. Like, I don't think he's a great guy, but I think he's a good wrestler. That was mean without being mean. We're going to move on. Sam, back to you for real quick. Aleister Black, Adam Cole, Bebe, Extreme Rules match. I guess kind of the other main event. Who do you see going over here?
Probably Aleister Black, just because I think he's on a pretty hot shot rise. I don't know how long he'll be in NXT, although I think they have an interesting conundrum on their hands in terms of how they portray him at the next level, because I don't know if the character they built for him in NXT is one that, gets super over on the more mainstream audience of Raw/SmackDown. But at the same time, I personally love what they've done with him, and I think he continues to keep the hot streak, keep the roll going.
I think he's going to make them millions of dollars in the main roster. I'm so excited.
No, I think the potential's there. But again, that they've ruined potential many, many times in the past.
For me, he's Taker with a work rate. He's Taker 2018.
Ooh, okay.
I think this is going to be something really special. They've got Aleister Black, and I think they know it too because they protected him very well in NXT without keeping him anywhere near any titles, which is interesting. Main event time, Cam. I'm gonna go to you. Cien Almas, which by the way, this means we could be on the cusp of Cien Almas versus Ricochet very soon. Cien Almas,
it's Almas.
Mr. Wrestling, Johnny Gargano.
There's no reason for Gargano to win any type of big match until he gets to wrestle Tommaso. It's just no, he loses again.
Title and that two-faced bastard Ciampa attacks him. That's a great setup for Brooklyn.
It is, but I think they don't need a title involved ever. It's not about those two being the best wrestler. It's about them being better than one another. So yeah, I think Almas retains, and maybe we get Ciampa being directly involved, showing up. But I'm gonna go with Almas.
The only
in a great match, by the way.
Oh, it's gonna be people who've never really seen Johnny Gargano work. You're about to watch him work main event style, and it's going to be fucking amazing. I do say this: the only way I see Gargano winning is if you want a hot shot debut, Candice.
Yeah.
Bring her out mid match as the equalizer to Vega, and have him win the title, and then Ciampa. That's kind of how I booked it in my head. But I think you're more right than anyone else. We're going to get the Ciampa run in set up for Ciampa Gargano at New Orleans, which I'm 1,000% here for. Let's move on to the main card. Because that's right, the big show's in town. Here's a quick question. Match order. We've got two Rumbles this year, the Women's Rumble and the Men's Rumble. Would you because the build has been so weird, I just want to float this. Would it be beyond the pale for the Women's Rumble to close the show?
No, if Ronda Rousey wins it.
That's
yes. Yeah.
Interesting. I guess I hadn't even really put that piece to it yet. I was thinking that, you might open the show with that or the AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn match, one of those two. But now that you mentioned that.
The thing is, you can't put the Rumbles anywhere near each other. So a Rumble is going to open and a Rumble is going to close.
I think so too. Yeah.
You can't ask people to set the back-to-back Rumbles. You can't do it. I know you guys love the Rumble, but you'd be on my train. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. No, you're 100% right. Can't do it that.
Yeah, that would burn you out. If you had the men's and women's Royal Rumble back to back, that's a smooth 2 hours, 25 minutes that you're just going to be like, wait, what?
Well, let's just talk Rumbles because the undercard's fine. Usos versus Galen Benjamin, 2 out of 3 falls. Oh, that's going to be a fucking barn burner.
That's going to be really good.
Seth and Jason Jordan, Shield of Jace versus The Bar. It's going to be a good match, a fine match. AJ Styles taking on the handicap match versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who will invariably fight each other over who gets to pin AJ Styles and gets to sneak a small package. Sorry for spoiling the ending of that match. Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman versus the man who's in the match to take a pin, the man called Kane. Brock Lesnar will be pinning Kane. So there's your undercard. Sorry, guys. Let's start with the Men's Royal Rumble because, as we just talked about a little bit, I think we have a very real chance of a Women's Royal Rumble headlining the show because, one, it's history, and two, I think you're going outside the company for a big bump. And we can say what we will about Ronda Rousey and how her career ended. She still has a Q rating. She still matters. You can put Ronda Rousey on a billboard and people will react more than they will for anyone on the men's side. That also
as long as she's wearing a Vegeta T-shirt again, like she was at WrestleMania, I'm game.
I'll tell you what I do, and this is going to kind of spoil how I think the Rumble is going to go for the women. I think this is the Mania in New Orleans. The headliner will be Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey.
Ooh.
I only say this because you look at the men's side. There's not one matchup that you put on a marquee. We're going to get Cena Taker. That's going to be the second marquee matchup. But this is the year of Flair. He near fall death. We had the 30 for 30. The book for Charlotte just dropped. They're obviously pushing her and doing the slight heel turn from a promo on SmackDown. You position Ronda Rousey as the babyface newcomer who's trying to overcome, who's just too tough. She doesn't know how to quit. You just book her like you would, honestly, Chris Benoit. She's never some more experience, but she doesn't know how to quit. Am I crazy? Go ahead and tell me I'm crazy.
No, I don't think you're crazy. The one thing I would say, though, is because of Asuka switching from the Empress lock to an armbar, I'm more inclined to think Asuka versus Ronda.
Ooh, wow. I don't know if Asuka's ready for that yet.
No, first of all, no one's ready for Asuka. That's how it goes. Second,
I was waiting on it. There you go.
Second of all, I think that'd be a fun match, but I think if you maximize like the most eyeballs possible, everyone knows who Ric Flair is, everyone knows who Charlotte Flair is, and everyone knows who Ronda Rousey is.
Y'all don't think this is going to be a tag team match with Ronda in it? Like that seems like the direction they were headed in originally.
Well, the other member, not Jessamine Duke, the third member of the Ronda Horsemen, stopped training.
Yeah,
I want to say like 2 months ago.
Okay.
She was like, "Nah, I'm done."
But it also means
like
they've been training for over 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's why you guys are the experts. I'm just asking the question.
If you can train Ronda to take some bumps and do some, she didn't have to bump in the Rumble. She comes in like Lesnar, just decimates people. You put her at 30, you have her run over people. That's an easy booking. Then you've got 3 months to teach her to wrestle. So whatever, smooth the edges. Charlotte, and I think Asuka actually is interesting because I think Asuka could drag a better match out of Ronda.
Yeah.
But I do think that because Charlotte's at her best when she's the second hand. She's the not as talented wrestler. She's at her best. But you don't have to have a 20-minute barn burner.
No. Now the one thing I will throw out there that I'm a little scared of is, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Women's Royal Rumble is being commentated by Stephanie.
She's on the commentary. She's not commentating alone. They're adding her. But yes.
Who going? Vince can be in her ear screaming. He's gonna be like, "You're doing fine, honey. You're doing fine. You're doing absolutely fine."
Remember that one time you were so thankful to hear Stephanie's voice? Remember that one? Remember when Stephanie was chanting for Rhino and she was like, "Go Rhino, get him." Remember that was like the best thing ever. Like there's very few people like I want to hear talk less than Stephanie McMahon, especially an excited and motivated Stephanie McMahon. That's the worst. Like,
look at my women
excited about this thing.
As the only Stephanie mark on the call.
Terrible.
I mean, a wild card here too could be Stephanie on commentary. Means Stephanie screws over Ronda Rousey as well.
Ooh, it says that makes.
Ooh, because she's right out there. Oh my gentle Jesus! Oh boy.
That's the way you get to that match and don't have Asuka lose. Yet.
Right, she cost Ronda the.
Oh. Asuka,
there's some good things that can come from that.
Battle royals don't count. We proved that.
I do what I can, guys. I do what I can.
You can take the rest of the pot off, man. He's earned his paycheck. No, I think you guys are right. I think that I think we're looking at Asuka or Ronda, and I think have we all accepted Ronda kind of has to be there? Just from if you're going 30 women, don't look at the roster and start counting because you get really depressed. Because 30 is going to be a stretch. We're going to get some NXT women get called up at least for the night. Hopefully we get a Candice LeRae debut, which Philly would pop for Candice. Not many other towns would. Philly pops.
What about some of those names we saw get wheeled back out as legendary divas the other night? Any of them going to pop up in this?
I think they're going to do the opposite. The people they didn't bring out, they're going to use. Like I know they've contacted Ivory and like Molly Holly. Like women who were wrestlers who could be mechanics in between the Rumble key pieces that won't be in the way.
Okay, Molly Holly can be involved. Molly Holly can be involved, but she has not in the hurricane costume.
No. I want her in like a regular.
You don't want Mighty Molly?
No, Mighty Molly, dude. Come on.
And everyone tells you how great the Attitude was. It wasn't all great. It's the sneaky.
And conspicuous by her absence will be Mrs. Lesnar because she never wrestled. And if anyone tells you that, it's up there with that guy who might have played football in Indianapolis that didn't. play football.
She powerbombed Mark Marrow.
Excuse me? I don't know what you're talking about, Sam. I will leave that between you and Mr. Lesnar. Because his wife is a mother of two, and she is happy Minnesotan/Canadian. So
Sam,
that's all I know.
If you mentioned that his wife may have once stepped inside the squared circle, Mr. Lesnar does not appreciate it one bit. So you just
Oh no, I could tell you a quick story, and this will get D-Palm's bell going. Wade was talking to someone at WWE, and and they gave him Sable's number, and he had a question for Brock about a story he was doing. So he calls her up, and she's like, "How did you get this number?" And he's like, "I was talking to so and so." He's like, "Well, you should not use this again, and I'm not gonna tell Brock you got it."
Oh God! Having Brock Lesnar mad at me might be like something that I am more scared of than anything rationally possible.
Yeah, this was in the heat of Brock running the locker room and telling guys, "If you go to the dirt sheets, I will kill you myself."
Oh my God!
Yeah. I hope Wade lost.
I want no part of Brock. So him and his wife, she was a school teacher as far as I'm concerned.
The best school teacher of the year.
The only hand from her are the ones that she's telling her students to in her lovely kindergarten class.
Yeah, Over the Edge 98 does not exist to me.
I don't know what you're talking about. Y'all trying to get hurt. Let's talk about the men's Rumble. We're gonna have some callbacks. Hopefully, some ECW originals will come out beyond Rhino, who's on the payroll. I know you tricks WWE. Let's start now with I'm just gonna name someone who could win the Rumble, and we're all gonna discuss it for a second. I'm starting with the one they won't do, but everyone's scared of. The Samoan named Joe, Roman Reigns.
You don't think he's going to win?
There's no way he wins.
No, I don't think Joe from Samoa is winning.
There's no way he wins. Cam.
I'll just say this really quick. You have the Royal Rumble, you have Elimination Chamber, and you have Fastlane. The fact that Fastlane is there too gives me the idea that Fastlane could very well have a number one contenders match for who faces the SmackDown champ at WrestleMania. So I'm not going to say it's out of the realm of possibility. I'm going to say if it's not somebody I'm sure we're going to discuss here pretty soon, he is my close number two choice.
So reactions go from it won't happen to almost very sure it might happen. Does that make you happy, sad, or what? Or just kind of like resigned because we've heard the writing on the wall for Roman Brock for the last year.
Mm-hmm. I don't need surprises in my wrestling, even though they're appreciated. Sometimes you go in with the script. If you execute it right, it's fine. So, no, if that's what happens, then that's perfectly okay.
It's not about moments. I love it.
No,
Franco, if Roman Reigns goes over in Philadelphia on Sunday, which is a sentence that after the last time this exact thing happened, should preclude it from happening again, how would you feel?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, this is a city that booed The Rock, for God's sakes. I mean, that doesn't...
That's the best. By the way, that's the best look on The Rock's face ever. It's like, wait, I haven't been booed since 1998.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just something that he's not used to, and something that, quite frankly, Philly doesn't care who you are. If you run afoul of them, they're going to let you know it. And I want to believe that it's not going to happen, but just something tells me, and following this as long as I have, that this just doesn't care. If he has a vision, and if they have a vision on how they want to go from here into WrestleMania, they're going to stick to it. And hopefully I'm wrong, but I just think, I mean, if it's not him, then I would assume that we get a surprise appearance, like say Braun, doesn't win, and it's all dependent on match order, but say Braun, somehow gets jobbed or something happens where it's like a weird finish in that match for where Lesnar wins, then Braun might enter the Rumble and win.
Yeah, that could happen. I think, like Cam, if it does happen, I'm fine with it. I think we're going to take a different route to getting Roman versus Brock, but we're getting Roman Brock. I think we're getting Roman Brock. The next name on the list, for me, this is a man who I think this would be a really bad idea. I also think that his current feud is happening because Samoa Joe got hurt, and that they're setting up for a big angle with Taker, which in my belief does not need a belt. So why would you involve it? John Cena.
He ain't
Rich.
winning.
Okay, Sam. All right, Sam, not winning. Rich.
Nah, I don't see it.
All right, Cam.
I think you have a few years before you have to cash in that John Cena beating Ric Flair title run. I think you can highlight a WrestleMania with that. I think if you do that, you wait till he's got a bit more clout in Hollywood, and your chips might be down and might not have a main event. There's too much to gain later, I think. So no reason to rush it. No chance John Cena wins.
There you go. A clean sweep of the panel. Next name on the list is someone who was mentioned on the PWTorch, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast, the wordiest name in America.
Yes.
A reader came in and said this wrestler had been buried because in his featured match on SmackDown, another main event star came out and hit him with the finish. I wanted to calmly and concisely explain to him what buried means, but I didn't want to take the time. Shinsuke Nakamura winning the Rumble, giving us AJ versus Shinsuke at WrestleMania. Cam, yes, no, maybe?
Really quick, Randy Orton dismissing of you just means you're of some type of ethnicity. It doesn't mean you're getting buried. I'm going to say, yeah. When we started, before we started, I did bring up the Vegas odds. Shinsuke Nakamura is the odds-on favorite. I think Randy Orton doing that just goes to show there's no friends in the Royal Rumble. I think it's cool that you established that early.
Me too.
No, I think Shinsuke Nakamura is who makes the most sense to win. Him versus AJ is a match that you really want. I think that makes room for maybe a Dolph Ziggler return challenging AJ at Fastlane to get him into something and to have a match.
Nice.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think Shinsuke Nakamura is he's definitely the Vegas favorite. He's also my favorite.
I'll tell you what, the Shinsuke AJ match is one we all want, and I know everyone says how great AJ's been, and AJ has been great, and people point out how his Cena matches were. I would contend, having watched all of AJ's most of AJ's matches since he's been back, since he came to WWE, his second best series matches were with Roman. And people will say, oh, AJ carried him. AJ couldn't get good matches out of Kevin Owens all fucking summer. I don't know what that was. They didn't have any chemistry. I don't know how you can explain it, but those matches, they just didn't land for me. And for as down as the fans are, I don't know. I'm a Roman, not defender. I think that the other side has radicalized me. I think I've heard too much, and I'm just like, this is insane. Like, I objectively, he's a good professional wrestler. But I think you're right. I think Shinsuke, for me, would be the most rewarding answer. Sam, Shinsuke Nakamura, do we get Wrestle Kingdom 10 again, this time in WrestleMania?
I'd love to see Shinsuke win this match, but I think, one of you guys said it a minute ago that, you have Fastlane there to set up the potential number one contender things. So I kind of feel like that's the route they're going to go, and it's going to be somebody from Raw that wins it. But I'm not going to be shocked if he wins it, and quite frankly, I would love to see it.
Rich, to you, Shinsuke, is this a possibility?
I think the safest thing for Philly is if they went with Shinsuke or someone like that and had Rome, or you go with a heel that Roman could beat for his spot in the Rumble the main event of WrestleMania.
I always hate when they do that, though. It's like the Royal Rumble winner is supposed to be in the main event of WrestleMania, and then you have these things where, like, I'm going to put my spot up against it. I feel like the only time where I was really on board with that was St. Valentine's Day Massacre when Austin won it from Vince McMahon.
Yeah, but that's the safest way they could do it without having Philadelphia burn itself down. I mean, I know most of Philly is in Minnesota right now for the Super Bowl, but whoever's left is still going to be. They have access to the knives and the torches.
Oh my God!
It's that before. Second to last name I'm going to say. Get you guys out here. Don't want to keep you too late. Finn Balor. And before this week, I was lukewarm on this, but they've now produced merch that has over highlighted, which tells you the stories about him not being over were a work. I tell everyone this. If you see it on TV or on social media, generally you're supposed to see it. So you saw the rub given to him in the Manhattan Center by DX. You saw he hit the finisher last for everybody when they were hitting finish on the Revival. They got the massive 2-sweet, and most notably, not just from HBK, but from Triple H in the ring in the original Raw set. I think that Finn Balor is my dark horse candidate to win this damn thing. I think he says, F it, I'm challenging AJ, Demon Finn, AJ Styles, main event of WrestleMania. Rich, tell me I'm nuts.
Ooh. Oh, I think that's a good idea, but I will counter your theorem that because we've seen 25, 30 some odd years of Triple H's boss preferring size to speed, and I think if anything, my suggestion has always been, to be quite honest, have Vince follow Finn around after hours and see how many women are interested in him, and I think that would do a lot more for him with Vince McMahon than any match ever would. But come on, pal. I mean, you're like 5'4".
Pretty good, Vince.
That was solid.
Can you see Finn going over?
You actually presented a great way to get through both Elimination Chamber and Fastlane. Like, number one, you can have the Elimination Chamber be a number one contenders match with your top 6 guys, whoever those are, not including Balor. And then still at Fastlane, you can have somebody challenge AJ and still have, a month to set that match up. So, yes, I can see it. I'd say he'd be my first alternate on Raw. I think he's going to be in the Final 4, whether he wins or not.
All right. Sam, Finn, thoughts?
I've never been as much of a Finn Balor guy as a lot of the IWC, so to speak. But I like him. I think he's a very good wrestler. He works very well. Not really sold on the finish as a it's just a weird looking one to me. But yeah, I could see him winning it. I mean, they seem to be very confident in him, and you don't make him the first ever Universal Champion for no reason. So, and you hit a great point there with the whole way that the DX angle went down at Raw 25. That it seems like they may be setting him up something there.
Well, you're not a Finn Balor fan, but there's no accounting for taste, Sam. Lastly, this is the name that's insane. I shouldn't even say it. It probably won't happen. But I look at the bed windows. Daniel bleeping Bryan. They told us the curb stomp was never coming back. Seth Rollins in shoot interviews. Hey guys, don't even ask. It'll never come back. Comes back on a random Raw. Daniel Bryan has been adamant. His language in his interviews has changed in the last 3 months. Before it was, hopefully I can get back to WWE, but if I can't, I'll have to look at the option of wrestling elsewhere. In the last 3 months, it's turned into a very black and white. Either I wrestle here or when the contract's up, I'm gone. It feels like we're being worked. It feels like he could do an angle schedule. I've heard his interviews. I know concussions make us all scared, but from the things I've heard him talk about, they're using a baseline for him as an athlete. His contention has always been, I'm not an athlete, I'm a wrestler. That his concussion tests are normal for a normal person, but not normal for an athlete. And if that's the case, and as we learn emerging science, and the WWE feels that they're covered, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar, yes please. Or AJ Styles, but Daniel Bryan. Actually, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar might kill him. Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, give him 30 minutes. Cam, I know I'm wrong for even suggesting it, but man, oh man, what a match.
Would be amazing to see. I just think with the time left on his contract, the money he'd stand to make outside of the WWE with the name he's built, healthy or not, I don't think they take that risk.
That's fair. Sam, what do you think?
First of all, the number of German suplexes he'd have to get a match with Brock Lesnar, I don't think that would be happening at all.
This is over. I'm firing up 2K18, and that match is happening. Don't you worry.
But I'm just saying that's a lot. That's a lot of German suplexes. But as much as I would love to see it happen, and you make a great point with the curb stomp / blackout there from Seth Rollins. You never say never, but at this point, I'm pretty close to saying never, at least with WWE for old Bryan Danielson.
All right, that's 2. Rich, kill my dream.
I will say they have been very quiet about this, and if this is something that's because I was in the crowd again. I know, get the bell ready for post production. I was in the crowd in Pittsburgh when they thought it was going to be Daniel at 30, and God bless him, little Rey Mysterio came out and got roundly booed and was just so confused. He was so confused.
Nothing to nobody, man.
It was like, why you got to do Ray like that, man? He just come in. He did.
Ray came to do his job. Y'all get mad for going to work?
It was just the sad booyaka of all time.
It was. It was like, who's that crying in the back? R-E-Y Mysterio. Here we go.
Beautifully
Come
done.
on, man. Chill out.
Thank you. It's just, I mean, I couldn't call it. I felt bad for that man. So if they did that, I think the safest thing for them to do, if I were them, is play his music and have The Miz come out.
Ooh.
You want some heat. That'll get you some heat.
Yeah, and have Miz, be in the Final Four. And if you really wanted to do it, then you have Brian, kick him upside the head or get him out of the ring some way, and that's his introduction. Because here's the other side of it. I don't think, regardless of how they feel about his health, I don't think they want him anywhere near the main event scene, because that's that, true. Again, is a little too dangerous, flirting with what happened with Roman last time.
You're right. Well, 2K18 it is for me, I guess. It's the only way I'm going to get what I want. Stupid event. Guys, thank you for coming on. Sam, tell everyone where they can find you and follow you, brother.
NJ Franco on Twitter. That's really it. I mean, there's other ways, but I don't really feel.
Podcast. You already plugged it once.
Well, yeah, you can check out the crossover podcast from 960 The Ref. Subscribe on iTunes, and you can find me on 960theref.com as well. Do a little writing on there. So
the morning show streams. And all right, I'm putting you over now. I do more than occasionally listen.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, 960theref.com. You can also get it on the TuneIn or iHeartRadio apps.
There you go. Cam, man, tell people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can listen to eastcoastcast.com. You can hear Travis Bryant, myself, and Rich Fann, depending on when you tune in, every Wednesday, 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central. You can also check me out on the South Congress podcast at South Congress with a K. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher. You're at least going to get a show a week, whether it's us reviewing some TV or just talking about what's going on in our lives. And then Instagram and Twitter, it's Seahawk, CEEHAWK.
And it's got 2 platforms, 0 invites for your boy. All right, and last but not least, Rich Fann, tell everyone where to find you and to find me this Saturday at 6 p.m.
Outstanding. Yeah, the easiest way to do it, Twitter, at Rich_Fann, Fann. And then you can reach me every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the deep dive. If you go to PWTorchLivecast.com, you're more than welcome to do that. And we also welcome you by phone, 515-605-9345. And like I said, I'm looking forward to have D-Palm on this Saturday so we can talk about the problematic faves and, dealing with being grown up and liking wrestling.
And listen to us, please. It's your favorite podcaster's favorite NXT pregame show. We're coming to you right on time, right before NXT Philly, Saturday, 6 p.m. That's it, guys. Thanks again to all our guests for coming out. We'll be back on Sunday, solo show Sunday. Maybe an appearance by guests. We'll have to see. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Be ready for a solo show. Be surprised by a guest. That was your show. This is your outro. See you guys next week.